Well, good morning everybody. 17th of May, and I really I have had a bit of a problem here. I was making the video and there's a little bit of a problem, shall we say. I've sort of got to redo the thing, but now I know I have discussed some of these issues before, and I'd like you to sort of bear with me on some of this because I've been reading a book, by the way. It's called Our Occulted History by Jim Mars here. It's available through libraries. He has passed away, by the way, last year. Actually, it was on my father's birthday, August the 2nd. Extremely well researched and put together book on the world, let's say, on history and things that have occurred. Major investigation into history, let's say, and connection with like everything basically to do with existence, let's say, how we came about. And it doesn't come down on the side of atheism, or it doesn't come down on the side of God in that sense. It comes down on basically on everything that has occurred and what is the sort of, let's describe it as the weight of evidence on a variety of things. And I've discussed in the past about God, and I've discussed in the past, I read a book called Christians and Evolution. Very, very good book. Is available through the Coyle bookshop, which is a Christian bookshop in Brisbane. I guess Coorong's in other places as well, bookshop. Anyway, I've loaned that to Paul Murphy's relative and a friend, let's say, and it's on his reading list, he says. I'm just hopeful that the reading list is not longer than, say, the end of this year. Not being sarcastic, Paul, but I'd like to see you read it from one end to the other, one cover to cover on that one. We all had a discussion, including another friend and relative by marriage, let's say, Brett Groves. Now, I don't want to rehash everything we talked about, but I find it very interesting that I did suggest that both Paul and Brett look at 3 videos. In the case of Paul, he doesn't need to worry about looking at the one called The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. But for anyone who has any interests and questions about faith and about God and about what's the truth of the Bible and all that sort of thing, could look at that video. It's about a 50-minute video on YouTube, and I've read the book, and I loaned the book to Brett, but he didn't read it, and I loaned it to Mark Simpson. He didn't read it either, I presume. It's funny to have an aversion to something like that, because I read lots of books in the case of Brett. But anyway, I did say, well, I suggest you look at 3 videos. We had a very, very wide-ranging discussion. And the 3 videos, Case for Christ, which I just mentioned, and the one called Slaying the Dragon. Very unusual title, but if you put down the name Stanton Friedman on YouTube, it'll come up. And he's done about 50 years research into UFOs, therefore aliens, other things that are related to that. Plenty of evidence, stacks and stacks of evidence on these subjects, so much so that it would stand up in court any time. It's all true and so forth. And then, of course, I did an impromptu sort of an idea. I said, look at this. First of all, think of it as a big whiteboard. Yes, okay. Now, draw a line down the centre of the whiteboard. And this applies to not only the 2 gentlemen I was talking about, but others. On the left-hand side of the whiteboard is a group of people, large group, millions of people. They believe in the Big Bang and they believe in evolution, but they think that there's no possibility that God exists. There's just no, I've made my mind up, it's over and done, there's no God. Everything is all by sheer chance, and there's wonderful design of life and the way the universe works and the way our solar system works and the way our planet works and the way life is, everything from plant life through to fish and birds and animals and human beings, things like the eyes, things like the heart, things like the brain, all of that is entirely by pure chance. Just an accident, you know. Sorry, but that's not the way it is. Now that's on the far left hand side of this whiteboard that I'm talking about. On the far right hand side of the whiteboard are fundamentalist Christians. And I can say to you straight away, both sides are both right in some things that they say and they're wrong in others. Now in the case of fundamentalist Christians, it astounds me, and I'm sure that when Brett views this he'd agree, and we talked about this, I googled it, which is handy, isn't it? 4 out of 10 Americans believe that the universe and the earth and everything was about 6,000 years old. They say up to 10,000 years. I don't know how they get their calculations. There was a genealogist, a Christian scholar, I don't know his name. Someone could probably write his name down for me on any comments on this video if you wish, and discuss any of the issues too, and in a polite and civil manner. It'd be good. Anyway, oh well, it's only 6,000, 8,000. I'm not going to argue. It's not possible because with the speed of light, which is, as a school kid remembers, 186,000 miles a second, and scientists have just calculated the distances of stars, distances of galaxies, and therefore the known size of the universe, and no one knows where it ends, and therefore the age of the universe. Oh, 13 point something, 13.6, 13.8, I'm not going to argue the amount of billions of years old. Now, if we just narrow everything down, just for the sake of this little exercise, to this galaxy alone, from where we live out on the outer arms of the Milky Way galaxy to the centre of the Milky Way is about 150,000 light years away, which means it takes light 150,000 years to reach us and go beyond and so on and be observed. Now, I illustrate this further by saying I've been to a home show and they had a company marketing these shutters, you know, and they said, look, we'll make this room totally dark. Not a speck of light will be visible. Okay, it's impressive. Mate, put the shutters down. They're electronic shutters on the windows. You could not see your hand in front of your face. You put your hand in front of your face, can't see whatsoever. In other words, you need light, even a very small amount of light, to see anything. And you know, we talk about these military night vision goggles. They might magnify things. I don't know, they might magnify things 50 times or 100 times. I don't know that. I'm not going to discuss or argue about that in a sense. But you need some light to see. So here we are with our galaxy alone, 150,000 light years to the centre of it, immediately disproving the idea that the universe is 6,000 years old. To make matters worse, by the way, in Genesis, which I believe, by the way, to be a parable. Now, straight away, Christians that understand the word parable, because the Bible's full of parables, but it's for a time of primitive people in the sense they didn't have education, didn't have universities, they had to be educated by life. Simple parable describing how the world was created, how they were created, etc. It worked quite well. It is quite suitable for about 1800 years, and then say in the last 200 years, or a lot less really only 100 or so years, we've known that, well, you know, the world's not flat. We've known that the sun, we circle the sun, and we've known that the earth is not flat. As I say, it's a joke. People still believe in that. Now, I guess some people believe in fairies at the bottom of the garden too, but they can believe, by the way, whatever they like. But I'm talking about evidence-based facts here. Sorry, flat earthers, the world is round. Sorry, people who believe in fairies at the bottom of the garden, you've got to prove it. There's no evidence for it. Now, you talk about goblins, or you talk about gremlins, or you talk about all sorts of the Yeti, or you talk about the Loch Ness Monster. It's not impossible. I'm not going to even be bothered right now to discuss that. I'm not going to get into that. So you can believe that certain things exist, and they may do. Now, in this book I'm telling you about here by Jim Mars called Our Occulted History, it talks about Atlantis. And it basically concludes that Atlantis did in fact exist, and it disappeared under the ocean for one reason or another. One of the reasons it talks about is a possible polar shift, which apparently occurs there on a rare occasion every thousands of years, many thousands of years, between one polar shift and another. And for whatever reason, I'm not going to go into the reasoning or the physics or the theories of polar shift here. This is a bit too much for this little discussion. What I am going to get into is, as I said, the whiteboard idea, where you've got a group of people in their millions who can believe in the Big Bang Theory and evolution, which I accept, and they'll never accept God. You can say, well, there's lots of evidence. There's really clear cases of near-death experiences, which, by the way, I've had. And I'm not going to go into all of that. I've been into that issue before, and you can accept what I say, or you can accept what you research, or you don't. You have to be more than narrow-minded. You have to be closed-minded. Now, I've got a good friend, this is going to be aimed at, it's John Edwards, who did say he's not just narrow-minded, he's closed-minded. That's very sad, really. It's more than sad. Because, well, he be a fundamentalist Christian. He thinks that the universe is 6,000 years old, and no argument anymore. Just going to go and bury my head in the nearest clean beach sand, you know. I'm not going to listen to anything else. I'm just not going to accept that there's a mistake. So all the scientists, the physicists, and they've all made a mistake. And those who have done the research and found that aliens exist, and there's been plenty of evidence of UFOs and aliens, not just UFOs as in a sky, something a light in the sky, or something a bit difficult that could have been weather related, could have been aircraft, could even be secret aircraft, could be lots of things. But there's a certain percentage, and it's over 20%. Now, Stanton Friedman said it's Project Blue Book. There was a final report, report number 14, I think it was, where it stated ridiculously, strangely, let's say, that any UFO reports that were of possible national security concerns were never included in the Blue Book. That's interesting. So you acknowledge they existed, and you had trained pilots and radar technicians, other people, lots of other people of high standing that observed these things, and there are lots of cases, and I've been into some of them in the past, and we know that they're genuine, and we know that there are multiple thousands of witnesses in some cases. Just look up Phoenix Lights 1997, and you'll see where there's tens of thousands of people saw this craft silently floating over Phoenix and other parts of Arizona and so on. The size, virtually the size of an aircraft carrier. It was huge. It blotted out the stars as it went past. As one woman described it, I could open up a full newspaper and point that up, and it would not block out this object silently flying over that area. Now, that is way beyond a secret aircraft. Propulsion, no noise, massive in size, and no one made that mistake of, it's not a mistake of identity, guys, it's not. There's plenty of other cases, and I'm not going to go into that right now. I'd be happy to discuss that if anyone wanted to talk to me about it on the comments section. But the fundamentalists are wrong, and also the atheists are wrong about the subject, in my opinion, and I'm not alone. Intelligent design seems now, to my mind, to be the best and most likely answer to the whole issue of existence and mankind and everything that exists in the universe. Now, straight away, some atheist friends would poo-hoo all of that. It's all a matter of chance. It's all natural selection. It's all trial and error over billions of years. No, don't worry about it. There's no God. And fundamentalist friends, and I've got a number of them, say, oh no, Johnny, no. It's God created the universe in 6 days, and we're only about 6,000 or so years old, and all the scientists who reckon that the universe is much older in the billions of years, they're all wrong. They've made a lot of terrible mistakes. Their calculations are just completely wrong. Well, I've got to say to you guys, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Now, the book I told you about, and I've discussed in the past, called Christians and Evolution, it's available at the Coorong bookshop in Brisbane. There's a couple of those, and it's probably available in other bookshops, and it may be available at your local library. I'd suggest you get it, read it from cover to cover, and consider everything that these 18 Christians had to say. And by the way, not one of them gave up their Christian faith. They all concluded that evolution had indeed occurred, but they remain Christians. And this is very, very important. As I said to Paul Murphy, read it, don't skip it, don't go through fast, here, a little bit more here, a little bit more there. I've read the book. That's not true. You've got to read from cover to cover and consider the contents. And as I've said to Brett Groves, look at 3 videos, and I've asked for a reply. I've asked for comments after you looked at the 3 videos. I sent them. Stanton Friedman in a video called Slaying the Dragon. It's talking about Roswell and other, I think some other issues, but proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that a spacecraft crashed and alien bodies were taken out of it, and I think a couple of live aliens were taken from it as well. Now, people might poo-hoo all that. No, they're going on crash dummy tests, all kinds of stupidity. Once you research the subject, you can find out that's not true. So I've felt that I've told you to go back to the big whiteboard for a moment. The line down the centre, as I said. Right in the centre, or just a little bit to the right of centre, is Einstein, who believed in God, but not a personal God of Abraham and Jesus and the one you pray to and get so on, but a God that created the universe, and he couldn't accept a personal God. What's his name? Akaku, the Michio Kaku, who's a Japanese American, and he said, oh well, Einstein said that. I accepted this God because I've done mathematics proves it, in other words. And of course, Brett said at the time during our discussion, oh, how can mathematics prove that, Johnny? You can't prove the existence of God. You can. He has, but he said, oh, he's not I believe there's a God that created the universe, and everything is too perfect, and everything from the universe itself down to our galaxies, down to our planet, right through to life, everything from plant life through to animal life, fish, birds, human beings, the whole lot is too perfect. Your eyes, your heart, your brain, all of that's too perfect to be an accident. We applaud that as a Christian. So, oh, that's great, good on you. Mitchell, you've hit the nail on the head in that respect, but we believe in a personal God, and I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus as my personal Lord and Saviour. I do have some serious questions, and I wonder about things sometimes, and I'm not even going to go into variety of things that you read in the Bible that some people would scoff at and say, oh, you know, how can the snake talk to this woman? How can a guy run around for 3 days in a fish or a whale or whatever and survive? I know all that, and I'm not even going to go into that now, and I can't understand it. A lot of it, by the way, even by Bible scholars, have said, well, it's metaphorical. It's like I was saying to you about a parable. It's a way of how to address life, how to address people, how to deal with our surroundings and to worship God. That's fine. But the Bible, in that respect, you might say, is its own worst enemy in that way. But I would like people to understand that there is God, but the Big Bang did occur, evolution has occurred, and intelligent design is the answer. And there are, I guess, good books on that. And one I was telling you about with this Jim Mars with the Our Coyle History is worth picking up. Have a look at the 3 videos though, Brett. Finally get round to look at the Case for Christ. Get around to looking at Michio Kaku with his description about God being proven by mathematics. And get around to looking at Slaying the Dragon by Stanton Friedman. Look up some of his movies and absorb what he has to say. So alright, well I'm hoping anyway that my friends who I'm going to send this to will appreciate it, will actually listen to what I've had to say, and will reply, will consider everything that I talked about and actually reply. Non-reply, by the way, through Facebook or anywhere else, means that the person has not looked at looked at this video and then looked at the others I've discussed, or read either of the 2 books I've discussed, which once again is Jim Mars, Our Occulted History, which I've told you about. It's worth having. And the other one, don't forget the name of the editor, but it's called Christians and Evolution. It is an eye-opener and well worth reading, and it certainly will change your viewpoint on life. If you're a fundamentalist who thinks that there's no evolution, there's none of that sort of thing, read that and see that these 18 Christians have made their mind up that there was evolution, and there is a God. Yeah, be amazed. There's a God, and it's all outlined. So look, I've put my point of view in the past, I guess. I'll put it again one more time, let's say, and I'd like to hear from all concerned who are interested in any of these subjects. I'd like to discuss other issues with you, any of you who make comments, but I do look forward to hearing from people. And I mentioned Paul Murphy, and I mentioned Brett Groves, and I'll mention Tim Spark in this group, and I'll even mention people like Steve Petroni, who is a humanist. That's something like an atheist, let's say, and thinks that everything's by accident. That's fine, but I believe it's not. So I'll address all this to you guys, and look forward to hearing from you. So thank you for viewing.